Okay, so let's dive right into this because there is an emergency happening right now, literally under the streets of modern Cairo. One of history's most important places is on the verge of being lost forever. And look, that's not an exaggeration. Those are the real stakes for a team of archaeologists who are in this desperate last-ditch race against time. And this really gets to the core of the story. You've got two cities occupying the exact same space. On one hand, you have Heliopolis, the sacred, almost mythical city, and it's buried directly beneath the modern urban sprawl of Mataria, a crowded, bustling district in Cairo. So you have this Egyptian-German team, and they are under just immense pressure. See, Cairo is a megacity. It's constantly expanding, and new buildings are set to go up right on this spot, threatening to permanently entomb the past under tons of concrete and steel. Which, of course, raises the big question, why all the fuss? I mean, what makes this specific patch of ground in the middle of a packed neighborhood so sacred that it justifies this massive emergency dig? Well, for the ancient Egyptians, Heliopolis wasn't just a city. It was the city. It was the literal birthplace of the universe, the very first piece of solid ground to ever exist. They believed this incredible cosmic event happened right here. And what's amazing is that archaeologists, by drilling deep beneath the city, have actually found it. A 15,000-year-old sand dune, a huge hill buried deep under layers of Nile mud. You can just imagine how miraculous it must have looked to the first people who saw it. And this shows their creation story so perfectly. But it wasn't just a myth, you see. It was a political blueprint. It laid out a divine chain of command, starting with the creator god Atum and flowing all the way down to the pharaoh sitting on the throne. So here's the crucial point. This myth gave the city immense political power. For 3,000 years, it didn't matter who you were not a true ruler without the blessing of the sun god at Heliopolis. It was the ultimate source of legitimacy. Okay, but if it was so powerful, so central to their entire world, where did it all go? I mean, how does a city covered in magnificent temples and giant obelisks just disappear? Well, it wasn't one single event. Its fall was this slow, painful process that unfolded over centuries. As new powers like the Greeks and Romans came along, they saw the ancient city not as a holy site, but as a treasure chest, and eventually, just a convenient source of building materials. I mean, the city was literally dismantled, piece by piece. Its sacred monuments, these incredible obelisks, became symbols of power for new empires, ending up in places like Rome, London, and New York. Its very stones were carted off to build the walls of medieval Cairo. All right, so let's jump back to the present day, back to that emergency dig, and see how this team is trying to rediscover the scattered legacy against some pretty incredible odds. Now, the conditions they're working in are just unbelievably difficult. The groundwater is so high that a normal excavation is totally impossible. So they're using these really clever techniques, basically drilling deep into the ground to pull up these long core samples, and then reading the layers of history like pages in a book. And then, in 2017, while working in all that mud and water, they hit something big, something that sent shockwaves literally all around the world. They started pulling these fragments of a giant statue out of the mud, and they just kept coming. In the end, they had over 6,500 pieces of this monumental puzzle, a statue that looked like it had been intentionally smashed and even burned. So naturally, the world's media just jumped all over this story, immediately reporting it as a lost statue of the legendary Ramesses II. But the archaeologists on the ground, they knew the evidence was starting to tell a different, much more surprising story. And this is where the real detective work started. First, the artistic style didn't quite fit Ramesses' time. But the smoking gun was an inscription on the back. It had one of the king's 5 official names, Neb-A. Now that was a huge clue, because that specific name was only used by one pharaoh, Psamtik I, a later king who reunited a divided Egypt, and, just like everyone else, came to Heliopolis to cement his role. Think about it. This one incredible discovery, found almost by accident in the mud, proves exactly what's at stake. What else is still down there? Just waiting to be found, or waiting to be lost forever? And the scale of this challenge is just staggering. Researchers think the main temple complex covered about 1 square kilometer. And as you can see here, they've only been able to properly excavate a tiny fraction of that, just 5%. A staggering 95% of it is either totally unexplored or already buried under modern buildings. And that's the thing, right? The vast majority of the city is still down there. We're talking about entire temple districts, royal palaces, and maybe even the legendary Life House, a kind of ancient library and university that was said to hold all the wisdom of the Egyptians. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around the amount of history buried here. We're looking at a single site that was the center of belief and power for 3,000 years, a timeline that just dwarfs almost anything else on the planet. Which really leaves us with this final, provocative thought. You know, the race to save Heliopolis isn't just a story about ancient Egypt. It's a question we all have to face, not just in Cairo, but all around the world. What do we actually value? What do we risk losing forever? And how much of our own history are we paving over every single day?